Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I love to hear the buzz in the room. I thought I was going to have to encourage conversation, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So good afternoon. This is our 32nd annual MIT Summer Research Programs closing luncheon. And so we are excited to have you join us, to have you here. It's a celebration for us. It's a culmination of 10 weeks of hard work by our research interns from the MIT Summer Research Program General, which is coordinated by the Office of the Graduate Education. So MSRP General, how are you feeling after the poster session? And we also have MSRP Bio, that's coordinated with the Department of Biology with our trusted colleague Mandana. How are you doing, MSRP Bio? And we also have a small but strong contingent, EBICS, led by Dr. Marisha Donald. How's EBICS? Wonderful. So I love the buzz. I love the excitement. We're here to celebrate your accomplishments over the last 10 weeks. We're also here to acknowledge our MIT community who have helped you all get to this place. And so one of the things that I have seen in meeting many of you, meeting your faculty mentors, your research supervisors, thank you all for being here, welcome, is that what I've noticed is the personal growth and the embodiment of our MIT motto, which is mind, hand, and heart. So I have noticed that our students, our research interns, with the help of our faculty mentors, with the help of the research supervisors, many of who are postdocs this summer, so amazing, thank you for contributing your time, have worked very hard to integrate the mind and the hand of MIT and what it means to do research. And the poster session, I have to tell you, was inspiring to me. I had no idea we had such amazing variety of things happening across the Institute. So this is always a pleasure to see because I know that you all put so much hard work into getting to this point. The other thing that I've seen is the heart. So I like to say corazón, but the Latin is, it's escaping me, but I know that it's heart. And so what I've seen throughout the summer is that you all, as students, as faculty, as research supervisors joining us, have really helped integrate our interns who come from institutions across the country, many of who come from resources where coming to MIT to have the resources to be able to be here is a dream. And so thank you so much for helping integrate and welcome them to the MIT community, albeit for 9-10 weeks. You all are part of MIT now, and I hope that throughout lunch that you continue the conversations about your journey here and where you're going to go from here and what this experience means to you. So thank you, research interns, for enriching the MIT community with your minds, your hands, and your heart. I am now going to turn it over to our Vice Chancellor, our new Vice Chancellor, Ian Waits. But before that, we are going to have our MSRP General Research Intern, Alvin Harvey, introduce Vice Chancellor Waits to give brief welcome remarks. We'll have lunch, and then at about 12:45, we'll get together and recognize the students' experience, but we'll have a keynote. I'm looking forward to Dr. Asegun Henry, who is an MSRP General alum 2 times, and then also returned to MIT to complete his PhD in mechanical engineering and is now a faculty member at Georgia Tech. And so we're looking forward to his words and his inspiration about his journey here. So welcome back. And then we'll continue with the program to honor 80 students that have been on our campus this summer. And just a side note, just to really put this in perspective, MSRP started in 1986 with only 8 students. who were from historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs. And over the last 32 years, we have evolved into MSRP General, MSRP Bio, and it is amazing to look across this room to see the great diversity, race, ethnic, gender, class. It's just amazing to see so many people that we have been able to get to this point. So thank you all for being here, and I am going to turn it over to Alvin. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome, MSRP General and Bio and EBIS, am I saying? EBIX, sorry. Welcome everybody to the closing lunch for MSRP. It saddens me greatly to actually stand here before you and know that our time here will be cut short for now. But it brings me great pleasure to go ahead and introduce our next speaker, Vice Chancellor Dr. Ian Waits. So, allow me to begin. Waits received his BS in 1986 from Penn State, his MS from George Washington University in 1988, and his PhD in aeronautics in 1991 from Caltech. Since 1991, he has been on the faculty of MIT, going from assistant professor to tenure to full professor to associate head of the Aeroastro department to the deputy head of the Aeroastro department to the department head of the Aeroastro department to the dean of engineering in 2011, and more recently to being the vice chancellor of MIT. Now this guy knows how to move up in the world. Now, if I had to list all of Dr. Waits' research accomplishments, I'd be up here all day. But the core of his work revolves around advances in gas turbine engines, fluid mechanics, combustion, acoustics, but the principal focus of his current work is on the modeling and evaluation of the climate, the air quality and noise impacts of aviation, as well as the assessment of technological, operational, and policy options for mitigating these impacts. In fact, in 2003, Waits received a NASA Turning Goals into Reality Award for noise reduction. And in 2007, he was awarded the FAA Excellence in Aviation Research Award. While continuing to perform research, Waits teaches undergraduate and graduate courses in the fields of thermodynamics, energy conversion, propulsion, experimental projects, and in fact, he was honored in 2002 with the MIT Class of 1960 Innovation in Education Award, and an appointment as an MIT Mac Vicaire Fellow in 2003. As the Dean of Engineering, Waits focused on developing new programs and spaces for entrepreneurship and innovation, as well as creating a better connected MIT family through the Institute's very own alumni, friends, and industry partners, thus continuing and improving the exceptional learning here at MIT. And now, as MIT Vice Chancellor, Waits will be focused on engaging with students and departments to develop and pursue a roadmap for enhancing the first-year student academic performance. He wants to partner with community members to make improvements for students in areas such as advising, professional development, diversity, inclusion, well-being, and implementing the residential education innovations called for in the institute-wide task force on the future of MIT education. He will continue to work with staff from undergraduate and graduate education to conduct an organizational review that the positions, the two offices to support these efforts, as well as optimize services for our students and faculty. Now, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Ian Waits.
Thank you very much, Alvin. I just have a couple things that I'd like to share with all of you here. First, thanks to all of the staff members who and mentors who really help enable this, because it's such an important function for MIT. Second, if you could remember one thing from what I'll share with you, it's something that Gloria said, and I wanted to underline that, and that you're now all part of MIT, and MIT is part of you. And we would, of course, in my role of trying to have the very best student body at MIT possible, we would, of course, like you all to apply to graduate school at MIT. If you don't, that's okay too, because you're still part of MIT and we're part of you, and you can still count on all of us to provide you guidance, mentoring, advice. It's just an email away or a phone call away from the people that you've worked with here. So I would encourage you to just continue to think about yourselves as part of the MIT community and let us know how we can help you. So that's the most important thing, and after I make my short remarks, I'm going to come back, I'm going to tell you that again in the hopes that you'll remember it, to rely on us for mentoring and any way that we can help. MIT has a long history of engaging undergraduates in research. And we also have a long history of producing very innovative alumni. And it's easy to look at the engagement in research as training people to be really effective researchers. It's much broader than that, though, the benefits of it. Because when you put undergraduate students shoulder to shoulder with grad students and faculty solving problems that have never been solved before, because that's what research is, right? Solving problems that haven't been solved before. It builds a sort of an innovative capacity that no problem is too hard. And you've had that experience here. You may have had that experience at your home institutions as well. And you ought to realize that you now have that sort of capacity, that just because no one in the world has solved it before, that doesn't mean that you can't solve it. In fact, the odds are if you put your time and attention to it, you will solve it. Okay, so I think the real value of engaging in undergraduate research is building that knowledge and self-knowledge and capacity to innovate and solve really, really hard problems. So congratulations to you guys that you have those skills. Other thing that I wanted to share with you is, and it relates again to the hope that you will apply to MIT for grad school, or at least get our help with applications elsewhere on things, and that's that the process of applying to grad school and the selection process is very much dependent on skills which are different from how you're graded and assessed in classes. It's really, what can you do when you're faced with a problem that hasn't been solved before? And classes aren't so much about that, right? They're about giving you the foundational knowledge more often than not. And I can tell you that at MIT, we have straight A students who we do not admit to our graduate programs because we have questions about their ability to solve problems that haven't been solved before. And then we have students which don't perform nearly as well, who don't perform nearly as well as you might expect, but who we are all clamoring for to work in our research labs. And it's because we know they can do it, right? We know they can solve problems that haven't been solved before. And you all have now had this experience here at MIT to do that and to work with someone. And that is someone who can write you letters of recommendation and really connect you both with MIT and with other places. So I would just ask you to think about that and rely on that as you go forward as a real resource to you in exploring whatever the right pathway for you would be, whether it's MIT or someplace else. It's that you've now had some demonstrated success working in a research environment, and that tends to be the highest credentialing agent for picking students for graduate school, or for helping them get great letters of recommendation for jobs, or whatever your pathway would be. Okay, so the connection of undergraduate education and research, I think, is really powerful. I think it's just a great thing that all of you have. And you should rely on us to the greatest extent possible to help you with that. So that's really what I wanted to share with all of you. And again, please send emails, phone calls, and stay connected with us, right? Because you're part of us now, and we're part of you, okay? Please rely on us. Thank you.
Everyone, please enjoy your lunch. I see that our amazing staff here at the Sandberg Conference Center is serving lunch. Enjoy, and we will come back together to do a recognition of our interns, our faculty, and our departments in a little bit. Thank you.
Just take your attention for a brief second. Thank you. Okay, hello. My name is Greg Girardi. I was part of the EBICS REU program over the summer. I am from California, and I go to school at UC Merced. Today, we have a very special guest, Professor Asegun Henry. He received his PhD from MIT in 2009 and started as an assistant professor in Woodruff School of Engineering at Georgia Tech in 2012. He also holds a BS degree in mechanical engineering from Florida A&M University and a master's degree in mechanical engineering from MIT. Professor Henry's primary research background is in heat transfer, with a specific emphasis on understanding energy transport, storage, and conversion at the atomic level. Since arriving to Georgia Tech, Professor Henry has made significant advantages and contributions to several fields within energy and heat transfer, namely solar fuels and thermochemistry, phonon transport and disordered materials, phonon transport interfaces, phonon transport interfaces, and he has developed the highest temperature pump on record, which used an all-ceramic mechanical pump-to-pump liquid metal above 1400 Celsius. This technological breakthrough has opened the door for many new high-temperature energy system concepts, such as methane cracking for carbon dioxide, free hydrogen production, and a new cost-competitive approach to grid-level energy storage. So please assist me in welcoming Professor Henry.
Thanks for the introduction. It's great to be back here. I went through the MSRP program twice. You'll see that today I'm basically going to talk about my career path and hopes that it is useful, that there are aspects and certain lessons that you may want to take from it. I'm a very transparent person and have a pretty strong personality, and so I'll keep it real, tell you my perspective, what my experience has been. And I don't pull any punches, so I'll just tell you how I got here. So my career path, I would say, largely started with my parents. Both my parents are educators. My mother they're both retired now. My mother was a professor at Florida A&M University in adult education. My father worked as an adjunct professor at Florida A&M, teaching history and a couple different courses, but primarily taught middle school. And they're both retired now. And so that was largely, I would say, my first put me on this path to being in education. I would say it's the family trade. Even my sister at one point was technically a professor, but she's a physician. Growing up, I grew up largely in Tallahassee, Florida. So this is something that I think is rather unique to my experience that many African American or men of African descent don't have, but I had lots of black men as role models, and that played a very, very critical role in my development as a kid. Growing up, I had a lot of people that I looked up to, that I was able to interact with both formally and informally, that had dramatic impact on my personality and who I became. One of the key, probably most important experiences I had growing up in Tallahassee is I was actually part of a rites of passage program. If you don't know what that is, many cultures around the world have a process by which people go from the process of becoming a boy to a man or a girl to a woman. The process of adulthood is not something that you just take on with age, but rather it is a formal procedure by which you are trained how to be a man or how to be a woman. And so I went through a process like that. I was part of a community of people who valued those kinds of things and had created a program specifically for young black men to undergo this process of becoming a man. And that actually was one of the most important experiences I had, which I would say ultimately led to me becoming an engineer, although it may not seem related. In that particular program, and this is that, I'm a 10-year-old boy, one of the things that they did with us is they forced us to learn how to think for ourselves. So that was one of the most important skills that I took from that experience. Is they taught us, we would watch TV, for example, we might watch the news, and then we would sit there and analyze it for 3 or 4 hours and talk about it. And they would go around the room, and it's interesting as a young person at that age to be forced to speak up for yourself and say, well, what do you think? And we would analyze it together. And so that process was integral to me learning how to think for myself. And that ultimately became the seed and the foundation for how I approach problems today in research. Is, I generally prefer not to know what anybody else is doing. I like to do the problem myself, and then after I figure out how I want to do it, I'll go see what other people are doing. And so that foundation has formed a really important cornerstone for me. But during middle and high school, particularly high school, I made some C's. So my parents used to always give me a hard time if I brought home a C. Mostly A's and B's, but then every once in a while I would get a C, and my mom would give me a hard time and say, why are you getting C's? Why are you getting C's? And there was one particular time I got a C, and she sat me down and gave me a pep talk. And I'll never forget this pep talk because it was very, very important talk. Prior to that pep talk, my view of education was school was just something you have to go to. You have to go every day. You don't have a choice. You just have to go to school. And I went to school, and I could do the work, and I didn't really have to try all that hard, so I was, doing okay. And when I would get these C's were when I didn't really try hard. And so one of the things that she pointed out, and we had in that conversation, she reminded me of the history of people of African descent, how we got here, and what we've had to endure, and that there are so many aspects of this society and this system that are pitted against us from the beginning. And she reminded me she made the connection between my performance in school and wanting to do something about that problem. For me, they were completely disconnected prior to that point. And when she connected them, all of a sudden I became motivated. Made straight A's from then on out until I got to MIT. Got a few B's when I got to MIT. But from then on, I was basically fully motivated and tried hard and made sure I did well. And it was purely a motivation problem. It had nothing to do with I didn't have the resources or anything like that. I just didn't try hard enough. So that was one key thing. My first career mentor was Dr. Makola Abdullah. So I was one of the themes you'll see through here as I talk about my story is fate and destiny. I was very fortunate to meet him. He actually was one of the mentors in that Rites of Passage program that I was in. He also happened to be a professor at Florida A&M University at the time. And I kind of naturally got steered towards him being a more personal mentor to me because I had a little bit of interest in engineering, and he was in engineering. And he had a dramatic impact on my trajectory because he gave me my first job. So he's a professor. I'm like maybe 16 years old because I remember I could drive, but I had just turned 16. And he gave me a summer job doing research as a 16-year-old to work with him. He was in civil engineering, and he had this really big interest in the pyramids, the Great Pyramids of Egypt. And he paid me and a grad student and I think maybe 2 other grad students to work on trying to understand how the Great Pyramids were built from a civil engineering perspective for a summer. Blew my mind. I just got to actually do research. First time I got a steady check. I was 16 years old. I was doing something. I was going to a college. I was working. So big deal for me because it opened my mind to what was possible. Fast forward. I worked with him again. He offered me another research position right as I graduated high school. So I was looking for programs to try and get a jump start. So when you come out of high school, get to college, I had decided I'm going to major in engineering. One of the main things you want to do is you want to get an internship. That's one of the main things you want to do so you can get some experience, so your resume will look different than everybody else's, and you can get on some kind of path ahead of everyone. And he gave me that first bite. He gave me one thing that helped me have my resume look different. I couldn't really put the pyramid thing on my resume, but he gave me another job, and I worked with one of his graduate students. We actually did something useful. So we actually ran some simulations, and there was actually like a conference paper that was published, and my name was on it, and I was coming out of high school, and so I had a conference paper on my resume as a high school student, and that was key, because now that was what distinguished me. When I went to the career fair as a freshman, I had this one extra line, and it looked like I had a paper, like I had a journal paper, and I got the internship, okay? So I got an internship my first time out, went and did an internship with a company called Visteon, which was like the parts division of Ford at the time. That was really, really important, because now once you have one internship under your belt, that makes your resume look good, so now you can get another internship, all kinds of other opportunities open up. And so the second summer, he gave me another opportunity, which I'm forever grateful to him for this. He's progressed through the ranks of academia. He's now actually the president of Virginia State University. So he went from professor all the way up through provost and is now president of a university. So he's had a great career. And so now I'm a sophomore in college. And so he's still kind of my mentor. I changed my major from civil engineering to mechanical engineering because that stuff I did that summer. I told him, he worked on earthquake engineering, so how to mitigate buildings from falling down during an earthquake. And I told him, the only thing I really liked about the research was that something was moving, right? I mean, if it's not moving, it's not cool. So I think I want to move out of civil where stuff is still, and let me do the mechanical thing where stuff is moving. And so he still recruited me. He said, I like working with you. I want to work with you. I want you to do another project with me. I'm like, but I'm not in civil. So he's like, and it blew my mind. He said, I'll pay you. You can make up whatever you want to do, and I'll pay you to do it. I was like, what? He said, so he said, you make up a project. I'll figure out how to couch it as related to civil engineering, and you can do whatever you want to do. So around that time, I had just taken physics of electricity and magnetism, so I was super intrigued by this notion of magnetic induction. And so I said, what if you had a building, you put so there's these controllers and these different devices people use in buildings, like particularly in Japan where they have lots of earthquakes. They actually install earthquake mitigation devices on the structure to keep it from falling. And so my idea was, why don't you put a huge magnet on top of a building so when the earthquake comes, instead of throwing away the energy, you harness the energy. You actually convert it to electricity, right? You have this huge magnet, right? It was crazy. But I ran with it, and he let me run with it. But what was key about that experience is I got the experience of coming up with my own idea and then trying to actually see it through from start to finish. And that experience is what sold me that I wanted to be a professor, that I wanted to be in research. The other thing that sold me, I'll come back to that project in a second. The other thing that sold me was during that time when I would go visit him in his office, I would debate amongst myself about whether or not I really wanted to go down this professor path. And so as an African-American man growing up, you don't really see any other African-American men as professors. So there's a cultural divide, right? The music I listen to, the way I dress, everything's different. And it's hard to see yourself in that role. And so I never forget, there was one day I went in his office. I go in his office, he's wearing sweatpants, sneakers, a t-shirt, he's got his foot up on the desk, and he's listening to Rakim while he's doing some work. And I was like, this is what a professor is like? And when I saw that, I was like, I can do this. I can do that job, right? This I can do. What that did is he normalized this notion of you don't have to be a different person to be a professor, to be in this field, right? What he showed me through example is that if you're good at what you do, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter how you talk, all of that. At the end of the day, people want good people and you will ascend. And so he showed me that through example. And so I felt more comfortable with this idea of being a professor just from seeing him. It wasn't a conversation we had, just seeing how he conducted himself, how he interacted with people, how he talked, and it was something I could relate to. Now, one of the interesting things about that project, when I was doing these slides a couple weeks ago, so I went back and I actually tried to find the conference paper we published. And it turns out the first thing I found was actually, so I had called it the structural magnetic induction damper. That was my idea, that was my name, SMID. And it turns out The very next year, somebody had a master's thesis on it at MIT. I was like, I don't know if they saw what we did, or sometimes it happens where in multiple places people have similar ideas around the same time. But this gave, these kind of things gives credence to the idea that even in the crazy ideas that I was thinking about, even at that age, there might have been some merit to it, and gives credence to this idea that it's good to think outside the box, it's good to think freely and come up with innovative solutions and pursue them, and have the confidence to do that. Don't feel like you can't pursue it. So I went on from there, managed to get, I actually did not apply to, I only applied to one school for undergrad, Florida A&M. I grew up there, all my friends went there. It just never occurred to me that I would go anywhere else. At that time, I had never even heard of MIT. And I got I knew exactly what it took to get a full scholarship. So I knew the specs. You had to get a 1200 on the SAT. I met the GPA threshold, and I'm not good at taking tests. So I went, took the SAT. The first time out, I was below the threshold. The second time out, I barely broke it and got like 1270, right? And it's all about the verbal. The math, I could kill the math. It's not the math, it's the verbal, right? And I didn't like to read, I didn't like English, I wasn't into all that. And so, but what this taught me, what this shows, I think, is, you don't have to be good at everything, to get by. I managed to get a full scholarship. I've been very, very fortunate that my entire education has been free. I haven't had to take any loans whatsoever. And so this was kind of the start of it. So I managed to get this full scholarship. And then fast forward, so now go to this third bullet point on Makola. He gave me this critical advice. So summer after I did this SMID project, now I'm like, well, I want to do some more research, but I want to maybe get out, broaden my horizons, go somewhere else, think about something else. And so he said, well, you want to be a professor? I said, yes, I want to go that path. He said, all right, if you're going to be a professor, you got to go to grad school, you got to get a PhD. Okay. If you're going to do a PhD, what's going to get you through the process is loving the work that you're doing. Don't be worried about where the school is. It's a small investment, a small amount of years compared to the many years that you'll work in that field. The most important thing is love what you're doing. I said, okay. So how do I do that? He said, well, start trying to read papers. Try to read journal articles. Figure out the topics you're interested in, and don't worry, you're not going to understand it. But just try. And as you read papers, this advice he gave me it's like seminal advice. I always pass it on. He said, read papers. As you read these papers, certain papers, the titles and what you read, the word, they're going to stand out to you, and it's going to be like, that's more interesting than this. Keep track of those papers. After you get a body of those papers, check the last author on those papers. You'll start seeing the same name coming up over and over. You'll start seeing the same name. Find out who that person is, figure out what school they're at, and email them. Send them a copy of your resume, tell them your GPA, tell them you want to work with them for a summer, and mention something related to Nesby so they know you're black. Literally, he laid it out for me. He laid it out. He said, this is the formula. Do this, do exactly this. So I said, all right, I'll do it. So I never forget. So I'm reading these papers, and it was around this time I had at least heard of MIT. And one of the names that keeps coming up is Gong Chen. So I'm like, okay, doing stuff with thermoelectrics, heat, electricity. I found that very fascinating. So let me email Gong Chen. I'll never forget this. Sometimes it's emotional even telling the story because I'm reliving the experience. I remember going to the school. We had like these computers you could use. I go to the school at like 10 a.m. on a Saturday. I'm gonna send this email to Gong Chen. I send the email. Sitting there listening to some music. 45 minutes later, I get an email back. He says, like your resume, I'd be willing to work with you, but I don't have any money. If you can find funding, I'll be happy to work with you. I said, I'm blown away. I'm like, all right, cool. So let me find some money. So what's the first thing I do? MIT, money, undergraduate research. What's the first thing that pops up? MSRP. So I get excited. I'm like, all right, there's a program. I can get part of a program. I can work with this guy. So I'm excited. Then I go clicking around, look at the application deadline. Application deadline passed 6 weeks ago. Ow. This is one of the most important lessons that I learned I want to talk about on this slide is don't tell yourself no. Let them tell you no. So what I did, Makola told me, apply anyway. Just try. So I called him. I called him up. I sent an email, put an application in, sent an email. At the time, the program was run by a guy named Roy Charles. I call, and they look at the thing. They're like, oh, you actually have a faculty member that you're already set to work with? You're in. I'm like, what? Turns out, because again, it's not obvious. I mean, they don't say this on the website, right? One of the key things with why they have you apply early is so that they can then spend some time trying to match you with a faculty member, right? And so, not knowing that process, you could easily rule yourself out. But since I already had a match, it was an easy in. Turns out I got into the program. So that was a very important lesson. So one of the key things that came out of doing those, I did that first summer. I think I saw Gong maybe twice as he walked through the lab. I was assigned to work with a graduate student. I worked on some problem, some obscure problem. I don't think they actually expected me to solve it, but I just kind of worked on it for a while. But at the end of the day, they judged me and they said, yeah, he worked really hard. He did really good on it. So I was like, okay. And the key thing I wanted to get out of it was, now I was interested in possibly going to MIT for grad school and needed a recommendation letter. And so how this works is it goes up the chain. So Gong is going to ask the grad student I worked with to write some bullet points or something related to the recommendation letter, and he'll sign it, and that'll be a recommendation letter. Now, what I came to learn later, one of the things that has a significant effect on your ability to get into MIT is having a recommendation from somebody who is either at MIT or has been at MIT. Somebody who's been here, knows the experience, and can say you're good enough to be here. I didn't realize how important that was. There was someone else I was close with during MSRP. I don't know how good her recommendation was, but her grades were better than mine, her GRE scores were better than mine, and she didn't get in. I remember I thought she was gonna be my sister, we were gonna get through it together, but she didn't get in. So, one of the things I learned from Makola, he broke down the economics of graduate school as well. Basically grad school should be free, you shouldn't pay. And so I kind of went in with this expectation, okay, well, grad school should be free. So I got into MSRP, did MSRP one summer, applied to MIT, got into MIT. Then I came back to MSRP to do MSRP again the summer before I started grad school because I wanted to get a head start. I wanted to run real fast, I wanted to be the best I can. So now, I get through that summer, we get to the fall, and I didn't know how this was supposed to go. And so I'm thinking I'm about to start working with Gong Chen. So I'm like, what's about to happen next? What do you want me to work on? And he says, if you don't have your own funding, I don't have any funding for you. I'm like, we've been working together. I thought this was how, And it was a shock to me. And so this is where, I have Dean Ike Colbert and Dean Staten here. They saved my life. I used to get calls from Georgia Tech. I had also applied and gotten into Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech says, yeah, we'll give you a full ride. We'll pay for everything. Okay. And I was all set to go to MIT. I was actually here already, ready to start. And now it's like I don't have any money. So I went to Dean Staten, and I was like, I like MIT. I was down to do it, but I'm not going to go into debt for this. So I'm going to basically leave. I'm basically going to go to Georgia Tech unless something can work out. And I mean, literally, within, 1 or 2 weeks, something magical happened. And I got an email that I had a fellowship to get me through the first year. And I was very excited and relieved. Still felt a lot of pressure because I'm like, well, that's only 1 year. What's going to happen the second year? And so this is another lesson. So I applied to the DOE Computational Science Graduate Fellowship. And so I had applied to all these fellowships coming out of undergrad. And I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I had no idea what I was doing. I wrote like these fellowship essays, and it's asked you, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like I'm interested in thermal and heat transfer, and I'm talking all around these various issues. And now being at MIT, I'm in a group, and now some of my group members have these kind of national fellowships, so now I could ask them to look at their essays. And when I saw the essay, I was like, I had no chance. None. I mean, these guys had It was a proposal. Had figures and equations and references. I was like, I was not at that level. I was not thinking like that. The other thing that happened, I remember I had a good conversation with Gong. It's a tough lesson, but it was an interesting lesson. He asked me, all right, you're applying for all these fellowships. Who's your reference writers? Number one, yeah, Makola Abdullah. He knows me the best. Hoping to get one from you, maybe a few other people I've met around MIT. What do you think? He says, who's this Makola Abdullah? I've never heard of him. I'm like, well, we're real close. He's a good mentor of mine. He's like, I've never heard of him. Don't include him. I was like, what? And it made a very big impression on me because it taught me what a reference letter is even about. Like, so how these things are reviewed is, there are two things. Like, as a student, you often think, well, it's what the person says about you, and that's all that matters, right? That's not all that matters. What also matters is who is saying it. And what he told me is basically, you need famous people to give you references, all right? Even if they say less. And I know this now as a faculty member. If I see, I judge some of these fellowships. If I see a recommendation letter from somebody famous that I've heard of, and they have something positive to say about you, it goes 100 times further than someone I've never heard of saying all kinds of glowing things about you. It's just how it works, right? Because the reference letter carries two weights, right? There's what they say, and there's also who's saying it. And so I learned in that case, the fact that Makola is not known in my field, he's not known in the particular community of people that I would be reviewing these applications, that his letter wouldn't carry as much weight, despite the fact that now he's a president of the university. At that time, he was a provost. It wouldn't carry very much weight. So that was a big, big lesson for me. But I ended up getting the fellowship. That was a huge deal. It's 5 years of funding, and worked out great, allowed me to do the research that I wanted to do. So if you don't get a fellowship, basically you got to do whatever your professor tells you to do, right? Whatever project they have you to work on. The fellowship gave me freedom. I got to work on the stuff that I wanted to work on. That's really the reason I came, and so it was really good that worked out. Ended up making a rather big impact in that field. And so got a chance to work with a guy named Steve Plimpton. Let me see, check time. And also met on a particular conference. Gong took me with him to this meeting. It's one of the most important meetings in our field. And I think I was a first-year grad student. I was working on some kind of off to the side, interesting stuff that he didn't have funding for. And at that meeting, I met a guy. His name's Sam Graham. He's a professor at Georgia Tech. So I go. I'm in Tokyo, of all places. I'm actually not in Tokyo. I'm in Japan, in another city in Japan. Go to this hotel. Basically, all you see is Japanese people, and then all of a sudden, I see a black guy. I'm like, "What's up, man?" So we dap up, and it's like, "Who are you? Who are you?" I don't know. So we had a good conversation. Turns out he's a professor at Georgia Tech, and so I had done the math even as a grad student. I was like, "All right, if I want to be a professor, here's the list of places that I would like to be." At the end, I already knew that. Georgia Tech was very high up on the list. It was a good compromise between being in a big city and also being at a top-tier research institution. So I seeded it with him then. I was like, "Yeah, Georgia Tech, I would love to be a professor at Georgia Tech one day." He's like, "Okay. Whose group you're in?" Gong Chen. "All right, let's keep in touch." So we kept in touch, and that seeded this idea of me going to Georgia Tech later. So I seeded it like 5 years in advance. I was able to go there and give a talk, prep them, get them, prime the pump, so to speak. Sam, I think, even may have helped me in some senses. Like, they may have been interested in hiring someone in my area a year or two prior, and he suggested maybe they wait because I was coming out a little later. Those kinds of connections are powerful, and the connections to people, and you maintain them, and it can have a dramatic effect on your trajectory. The experience at MIT was tough. I got through it. One other fateful conversation I want to mention I had with Cullen Bully. So now he's a professor in mechanical engineering here. So I didn't realize it, but I was on my way out of MIT when he was interviewing to come in. So he requested to meet with the black students in the mechanical engineering department. So guess who that was? Just me. So me and Cullen had a meeting. So he's like, "What's the experience like?" So I tell him, I gave it to him raw. And then and he says, "So how soon are you graduating?" I'm like, "I think I'm a year, maybe another year out, maybe 2 years." And he's like, I told him, I talked to my advisor. He said I could graduate when I want to, but I don't want to graduate yet because I want to learn some more stuff. I want to broaden what I can do. I don't want to just be an expert in one area because I feel like I can make an entire career on that. And so he says, oh, man, that's the wrong way to do it. Write your thesis, graduate. I was like, okay. He's like, graduate, then interview for jobs, get a job, then tell them, hold on, I want to wait, I want to do a postdoc, and I want you to pay for it. I was like, whoa. I was like, that works? He's like, it works. I'm like, all right, I'll try it. So immediately I tried to get on this path to graduating. I mean, in mechanical engineering, doing postdocs was not the norm at that time. It's becoming more of a norm. So this notion of doing a postdoc so you can learn more, expand your horizons, it was a developing idea, was a developing trend. And so the idea of me, I had never even thought about it. And so I decided to go for it. Started trying to publish. I had all these results on my computer. I was like, all right, let me just try to get as many papers out as I can right now. I was trying to I wasn't in any rush. And it worked out. Got a job at Georgia Tech. Got a couple other job offers as well. Got a job at Georgia Tech. And then I said, I kind of would like some time to go learn some other things and do maybe a postdoc. Think maybe you could put some money in the offer letter for a postdoc. And they were happy to. I was surprised how it worked. So that conversation with Cullen worked out really, really well. I'm going to accelerate now. I know I've spent almost 30 minutes on 2 slides, but that's because there's just a lot of stories in here. So I'm going to move quickly now. So I ended up getting money for postdocs. I got money from UNCF Merck. They have a postdoctoral fellowship program. Was able to go to Oak Ridge National Lab and work with a guy named David Singh. That worked out very, very well. Gave me a chance to learn a particular field that I'd been interested in, which is called DFT, or density functional theory. That largely kind of addresses an Achilles heel with the kind of research that I was working on. I really wanted to get rid of that issue. First time I had my own apartment. The entire time I was at MIT, I had roommates. Never forget, I got my first apartment on my own. I just sat in the kitchen with my underwear, just on the counter, like my own space. My own space. So I remember that being a big deal to actually shift to now I have my space. Went from there, got another postdoc fellowship, went to Northwestern, and each time I did this, I called the chair at Georgia Tech, and I'm like, I got another opportunity, any chance I can delay for another year? And he goes, no problem. So I'm delaying now 2 years. So I delayed my job 1 year, call him up, can I delay 2 years? He says, yeah. And finally, I made this connection to solar energy. So that was really all along that had been my passion, what I wanted to get into. My research area wasn't necessarily in solar energy, but I'd learned a lot of fundamentals that I might be able to actually apply to solar energy. And so I'll tell this story of this very fateful morning. I was in Shanghai, China. I see Gong. Hey, I say, how you doing? We're gonna have breakfast. Okay, let's sit down for breakfast. We sit down for breakfast, and he makes a joke. He says, I say, you do too many postdocs. You're like a career postdoc. You don't want to start your job. And as he's making this joke and we're laughing, another guy, Arun Majumdar, is walking by. Arun Majumdar is another guy who's considered basically one of the top in my field. I'd met him before, and he overhears this joke, and he says, oh, I say, actually, you should do my postdoc. I said, well, okay, what's your postdoc? And he says, I'm at ARPA-E. Basically, he had just started a new part of the Department of Energy. I didn't know anything about this. And he says, we're looking for the best and brightest, trying to create a fellowship program, have you guys come in and basically be like a think tank, tell us what the new ideas in energy are that we should be pursuing. I was like, okay. So I go back to my room and I'm Googling and I'm like, whoa, this is cool. So it's actually a new division within the Department of Energy. You guys, how many guys, show of hands, have ever heard of DARPA? All right, so this is the DARPA for energy. So they fund high risk, high reward projects, things that are pie in the sky, but if it works, it changes everything. And for me, I had always been interested in finding some way to get into solar energy. That was really the thing I wanted to get into. And I also have entrepreneurial aspirations. And so as I'm reading about this fellowship program, I'm like, oh, wow, you get to learn about the full spectrum of the energy space. You get to learn how to commercialize technologies. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I want. And I was like, okay, You got to learn and help them develop programs, so I'm going to learn how to write proposals. These are all things that are going to help me be successful as a professor. Also, the network, right? And so that was a crucial, absolutely pivotal decision to go to ARPA-E. So I called Georgia Tech up again. Can I have one more year? They were like, ARPA-E, go. So here's an interesting story, interesting thing that happened with that. I'll just tell this last story and then I'll wrap up. So I go to the interview for ARPA-E. It's so deep. You know, I wrote down a derivation of an efficiency for a particular type of process. And it was very elegant, it was very simple. And they were like kind of blown away by like, oh, this makes so much sense. We should definitely be moving in this direction. Clearly you've outlined why it works, why it should work. And so time goes on, we're negotiating. I'm like, okay, yeah. And then I don't hear anything from them. And I'm like, so what's going on? So Arun leaves me a voicemail and he says, yeah, we heard you couldn't take the job. I'm like, what are you talking about? And so I don't know how some rumors went around that I couldn't take the job, but then I get an email from the president of Georgia Tech. And he's like, I am officially authorizing you, take the job. You can take the job, there's no problem. And so I don't know how it happened, but I called him back and I'm like, no, I can take the job, there's no problem. And I remember thinking how pivotal it was because somehow me just taking this position had made word all the way up to the president. And it was such an important thing that Georgia Tech wanted to make this investment, so they had an inside guy in a new funding agency, right? So at the end of the day, you know, when you see these opportunities where you can make a significant advancement, where you can actually get an inside track into something, by all means take it, you know, don't hesitate. I was very hesitant at the time because I thought I was delaying my job too much. But as far as they were concerned, it's more resources I bring to the school. So since then, been successful as a professor. After ARPA-E started my job as a professor, I'll do this slide real quick. I managed to get a couple proposals funded very early, hired some great students. I took a lot of risk in the way that I approached things. I had like my bread and butter research from grad school. I was gonna do that to publish papers, but then like the other half of what I was doing was completely new, and you know, someone could argue that I wasn't qualified to do it. I didn't have any track record doing it, and so I was proposing a lot of new ideas, but I took a lot of big risks and it worked out. Got the experience of managing a project, you know, multi-million-dollar project with like over 30 people involved. Got that kind of managerial experience of how to interface with all these different people. Got a lot of great mentoring from a lot of great colleagues, Sam Graham, Bartunde Kola, even Ken Sandage, who's in material science. He's now at Purdue. And we've made, you know, 3 major accomplishments in terms of research accomplishments, which I can talk about that later if anybody's interested. But for the time being, let me go ahead and stop here in case there's any time for questions. And I just want to encourage you all, you know, don't tell yourself no, let other people tell you no, and push yourself to, you know, take every opportunity you can. And don't worry about what the consequences may be. You know, let other people tell you what those consequences are rather than you assuming those consequences. Thanks for your time. So I guess we'll take questions. Anybody have questions?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
To your right.
There you are. Okay.
Hello, my name is Paloma. I graduated from University of Puerto Rico, and I'm incoming grad student at BCS, as well as an MSRP student. Thank you for teaching us about how to seek out opportunities. And my question is, throughout all of your research experiences, have you encountered failure? How did you react to them, and how did you overcome them? What did you do next?
Good question.
Thank you.
I have encountered lots of failure. I would say one's success as a researcher is largely dictated by how you deal with failure, how you persevere in the face of failure. In general, I categorize failures in 2 different bins. There are failures that are fundamental, meaning your concept for how it was supposed to work, there's some fatal fundamental flaw and it will never work. It's very important to be able to know when that is the case. When that is not the case, it falls into another bin, which is a lot of times what we call like an engineering failure. Maybe something can't work or doesn't work right now given what we have or the way you did it. That's a different kind of failure. And I have grown to not, research can be emotional, because you put a lot of time, you think about these ideas, you get excited about it. So the excitement is an emotion, you're excited, then it fails, and it's like, oh, why didn't it work? And so much of problem solving is emotional management. I tell my students this. I give you a hard problem on a test, and you got to think and come up with a new solution on the exam. So much of your ability to succeed in doing that problem is your ability to manage your emotions and not panic and not just say, oh, what am I going to do? Relax, take a deep breath, get creative, because stress is anti-creativity, right? And if you take that approach where you accept that there are going to be failures, you don't let it bother you, you kind of expect it, then it can enable you to be very perseverant. And so anytime you encounter those failures, you move on to the next thing very quickly. Or ideally, you've already thought about what the failures may be, and you already have plan B, C, D, and E, and F already lined up. So that's what I would suggest. That's how I've dealt with it.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
Hi, my name's Haley Brace. I'm a rising junior from Cornell University, and I'm working in the economics department this summer. So we talked to Columbui earlier this summer, and one of his advices for our career and deciding what we want to do is to look at the intersection of what you're good at, what you can make money at, and what your neighbor needs is what he called it, or what problems you think need solving in the world.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know between the one talking about what you're good at and the one that's talking about what the world needs, it seems like those happened to coincide for you. But which one drove you more? The fact that you could work towards clean energy and make the world a better place, or was it just pure fascination? And what's been driving you?
What has driven me is definitely the potential impact. This is another thing I try to advise people on, young people coming up is, it's good to enjoy what you do. For me, my enjoyment of what I do is ultimately almost fully derived from the potential impact that it will have. So I'm very passionate about mitigating climate change. And, I get up every day when I go to work and feel like my job is to save the earth and save the human species. That is motivation enough for me. As far as like engineering and the work itself, that gets me through because I don't actually enjoy like writing code and, I don't enjoy that part, so to speak. My real passion is music. I'm actually a musician, right? That's actually what I enjoy. But I have arranged my time and my life such that music is more of a hobby, something that I do for enjoyment because it's my passion. I don't try to make money from it. That's not gonna be my main impact in the world. And so my suggestion is really to think about, I always push students to answer a very, very important question for your whole life, probably the most important question ever answered, which is, why are you here? What is your purpose in life? What is the purpose of life itself? People will debate these kinds of things and often think of them as being age-old questions that no one will ever answer, but I will encourage you to accept the possibility that you can answer it for your own life. And that answer does not have to take a lifetime to get to. You can actually sit down and think about it and take you a week or two. And if you do that, it has a dramatic impact on the choices you make in life. Because once you're very, very clear on what it is you're doing, why it is you want to do it, and ultimately what your mark is going to be on this earth, you may be presented with lots of opportunities that may take you on a tangent away from what it is your true passion or your true purpose is on this earth. But if you're clear about that, you will automatically filter those things. And you may make decisions to make certain sacrifices to push yourself to go in a certain direction because ultimately it's fed by your true purpose rather than being fed by what may pay you more at that time or may give you an inroads to some job, but if that job doesn't ultimately link with what it is your true purpose is, then what's the point? So I always encourage students to try and answer that question. If you don't have the answer to that question, to some extent I might argue you may be wasting money. You're making decisions about what school to go to, what to major in, what to study, if you don't even know what your purpose is in life. So always try to at least answer that. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Henry. And so now we are moving into our MSRP videos. So if we could have our next student speaker join us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yami. I'm from the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez campus, and I'm really happy to be here with you today. I want to start by saying that if 10 years ago you would have told me that I was going to be here in this podium talking in front of professors from MIT, I would have not believed you. And I think that's the case for many people here, not talking in the podium, but being at MIT. I heard about MSRP around November of last year when Mandana came to visit my home institution. And I remember thinking as soon as she finished her presentation, two things. First, I was very scared by this person. I was very scared by Mandana. I am not so scared of her now, still a little scared. And the second thing was that I was not going to apply to MIT. I felt like I wasn't going to belong there because everyone there was way smarter than me. I know, imposter syndrome. It's a thing, guys. But however, I came to MIT on January for the quantitative biology workshop, and I soon fell in love with the place. I loved the infrastructure and the research that was taking place here. I wasn't a fan of the cold, but you know, it's kind of like, it comes with Boston. So I decided to apply. To my surprise, I'm still surprised, I got in. And fast forward to the first weeks of the program, I have all of this information coming at me, you know, that the experience is really intense, that I have to get results in 2 months, that, you know, everything was coming at me, and I felt really overwhelmed, and I felt like I wasn't going to make it. I didn't want to be here anymore. Of course, I didn't tell this to anyone because, you know, that doesn't look on the letter of recommendation. But I was feeling that. I was experiencing that. As I started doing and working on experiments in the lab, I started getting more comfortable, but still, I remember every time I used to see my PI pass by the lab and come and talk to me about my project, things I was doing 24/7, I got nervous to the point where I would forget the name of the protein I was working with. It was really hard. But things like the Methods and Logics course, which for those of you who don't know, it's a class where we have to read papers related to fields that are not necessarily ours, helped me gain confidence in myself. I realized that I was able to actually comprehend papers that I've never heard of before and talked about them with my peers in an eloquent and intelligent way. And that moment for me was very life-changing. I realized, you know, I'm actually kind of good at this science thing. And soon after, I started reaching out to people in the lab, not only my mentors, but grad students. I started talking to them about their research project, about my research project, about my many, many failed experiments. And they gave me ideas. I pitched in ideas to them. Some of them weren't that good, but I was expanding my network. I was growing as a scientist. Something that's also really important about MSRP is its diversity inclusion. It helps create paths for and by people with a diverse array of backgrounds, and that's really important. I know that at least for me, as a Hispanic woman in science, every time I meet someone who has a similar background as me, I think to myself, if this person has gone through similar obstacles as I am currently experiencing right now, and he or she has been able to be successful, so can I. Something as little as that can go a big way for a person like me, and I know this is true for many people from the program. I leave in about 2 days to Puerto Rico, and I know I take with me in my heart a piece of MIT. I know it sounds corny, but it's true. I take with me the knowledge I gained from my mentors. And when I say mentors, I don't mean professors and grad students only. I also mean mentors that I made from the program, students from the program who I consider to be my mentors, because you guys are awesome and I love you. And when I say lessons, I don't mean just technical. I don't mean experiments only. I mean the fact to think critically about a problem and be able to think of solutions, even if they're not plausible at the time. I mean being able to do an experiment 10, 20 times and have it failed every single time, and still be willing to go on a Saturday to work in the lab to get something to actually give me the result I want, or to troubleshoot it, and still find motivation within myself to answer a question. And last, what I mean by the lessons is the ability to communicate my science, to feel confident enough to talk to someone that doesn't necessarily have the same background as I do, and convey my passion and what I've been doing and working on and why it's important. Because I feel that as scientists, the most important thing is to communicate and educate society on what we're doing, and to be able to distinguish truth from false. And in the time we're living, I feel like that's really important right now. So yeah, MSRP has been this really life-changing experience for me, and truth be told, I don't feel completely sure of myself as a scientist, but I can say with all honesty that even if it's not at MIT, because I'm applying this semester, even if it's not at MIT, I'm really, really excited to know what question I'll be answering and what grain of knowledge I'll be able to contribute to society. So thank you all for your attention. And yeah, that's my speech. And now I'll leave you with some of the highlights from MSRP General and MSRP Bio experience. So I hope you enjoy your day.
Tell me what you want. You can tell me what you need. Come the break of dawn, we can unwrap this mystery. The stars in the sky are shining, flashing so bright like lightning. The feeling that it's finally here. It's that time of year. Again, and we're never looking down. It's never gonna end. I'll keep your feet up off the ground. The stars in the sky are shining, flashing so bright like lightning. The feeling that it's finally here. It's that time of year. Together
MSRP stands for MIT Summer Research Program, but it's much more than just a research program.
Every day I'm here, it's a different experience.
It involves mentorship, different workshops about graduate admissions or scientific communication.
MSRP is actually a great opportunity to develop skills as a professional researcher and prepare for graduate school.
It was the perfect fit, and I was really hoping when I submitted the application that I would get in, because I thought it will become the best experience I'll have.
I've always been interested in robotics, but it wasn't until I guess I got to MSRP to where I was able to understand, like, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that I can work on. We're working in a biomechanics lab for human rehabilitation. Our project is a human subject experiment. So there's a robot and it moves a handle in an ellipse, and the human's instructed to apply a constant force in the direction of motion. What we're trying to figure out is why are humans so good at this, and if we can figure that out, maybe we can implement that into robots. My day-to-day involves a lot of MATLAB, a lot of programming, which I had done very little of before I got here.
I've just seen leaps and bounds in what Michael's been able to do since he's been here. I've done MATLAB a couple times for homework assignments, and I've read about it, to now doing like simulations and all of the data analysis for the whole project in MATLAB.
That's always been my Achilles heel back at home. I'd always be like the guy in the group who's like, oh man, this is tough. I'll work on more of the mechanical side. I don't think going back to my home institution, I'll be that guy anymore.
Last winter quarter, I registered to take a laboratory class for a digital systems project. There was a visiting professor from MIT.
I decided to teach with my co-host in UCSD, introductory logic design course. And David was a student in that.
I met with them.
And then he asked me about MSRP.
And we talked about some projects.
And it was obvious to me that he's enthusiastic about it. And that's very, very important. I strongly encouraged him to apply. And I'm very fortunate that he got in and he's working with me.
My work is directed to design a convolution accelerator. Current designs are either too slow or too specialized.
One day it went from he's got a hardware design, he's got the idea of what the hardware needs to be, to the next time I see him, he's written the software for it. He's gotten there faster than I ever expected.
The lab team that I'm working on is the School Effectiveness and Inequality Initiative.
This past year, the charter schools in Boston teamed up and decided to implement a new system, the Common Application, to make it easier for students to apply to more than one school.
We want to match the students who applied with their state-assigned ID, and then we can track their outcomes and their test scores in future years. It's my job to be the go-between for the school data and the researchers who want to examine it. I come from rural upstate New York. I'm also a first-generation college student. So now to see that low-income kids in the Boston area have the opportunity to go to a school that's going to prepare them more, for me to evaluate whether this is a fair and efficient system is really important to me.
This summer I'm working under Dr. Paula Hammond's lab in the Department of Chemical Engineering in the Koch Institute of Cancer Research. I come from an immigrant family, and I am a first-generation refugee as well. So when I was back in Damascus, Syria, I got to see 3 of my relatives that did have cancer, and I saw how the chemotherapy had a lot of bad impact on their health. So I was really always interested in how does this disease progress to become this, and why is the chemotherapy have that much bad effect on healthy cells and not only cancer cells. So after doing a lot of literature research, we came up with an idea of encapsulating a chemotherapy drug that's already been in use in the market since 2012 inside a drug delivery vehicle to reduce the side effects that it imposes on patients that use it.
Miriam did a phenomenal job. I'll definitely say she really kind of took the project under her wing and made it her own. That's pretty phenomenal for an undergrad.
She really sort of dove in a lot like a grad student would. I've just been very impressed.
I have been really lucky in this lab because I propose the question and then they're leaving me to find the answer.
My favorite part of the week would be our pod meetings. I think it's just important to see like your peers evolve and be able to see their trials and triumphs and being able to share yours with them.
We have 4 pods, which have about 10 students each, and those are led by MIT graduate students.
Our role is one of mentorship and guiding them through a process that includes navigating MIT, navigating resources around campus, as well as understanding other things about the graduate application process. So a lot of things that somebody who is new to the research experience may be interested in answering.
We get dinner together, we talk about our weeks, we talk about what went well, what didn't go well. They're there to listen as your friend and also to give advice as a mentor.
I know that my mentors really heavily shaped my path. The same interactions that I had with mentors as an undergrad and how they helped me grow, I see in the students and how we might be helping them grow. I think this summer will definitely change their lives.
What makes MSRP different from other research programs is that they really gear towards preparing you for graduate school.
It's given us a lot as far as workshops go and preparing us and giving us a lot of tips on how to get to where I want to go.
I think one of the coolest part is being able to see like a clear pathway from your senior year until you actually graduate.
I didn't know what a statement of objectives or a statement of purpose were, and now I've signed up for the GRE, I have a test date. MSRP provided me with materials to study, and I've been doing that this summer too.
But I think the most important thing that MSRP has given me is the confidence and the belief to be able to say that I can go to graduate school, I can get a doctorate degree, and I will be able to put myself in such a rigorous atmosphere.
They showed me that you are capable of doing anything you put your mindset into it.
They make sure that you know that you belong here.
It is definitely the opportunity to challenge yourself to learn something new.
I got really lucky with finding MSRP.
It's been the best summer of my life, for sure.
I think I'll always carry this with me.
This is where it all happens.
So I am Marisha Donald, and I am the program manager for Education and Diversity in the Center on Emergent Behaviors of Integrated Cellular Systems. And I have the pleasure of, first, collaborating with MSRP and the amazing staff of MSRP for the past 3 years in my role. And it has been such a privilege. I have a small but mighty cohort of 5 to 6, and the programming that MSRP offers is such an advantage to my students, and they would not have the opportunity to do things like GRE prep or have those roundtable discussions with professors, which are super important, without not only the kind of open door policy that the ODGE has cultivated, but also kind of the warmth with which we are received by Gloria and everyone who administers the program, so thank you. So, as I shared with you, I am here to introduce my small but mighty cohort, and we are the EBICS REU of 2017. First, we have Sal Boutros. His faculty advisor is Paula Hammond. He had his research advisor is Brett Geiger in the departments of biological engineering and chemical engineering, and Sal goes to UMich. Next up, Greg Girardi, who had the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker, faculty advisor Harry Asada, research advisor Hyun Yu Kim, in the departments of biological engineering and mechanical engineering, and he goes to UC Merced. Minerva Marcano, who some of you all were here last year might recognize because this is Minerva's second year. She's been working in the lab of Dr. Roger Kam for this past summer and also the past academic year because she's local. Her research advisor is Tina Haas. She's oriented in biological engineering and mechanical engineering, and she goes to Fisher College, like her shirt suggests. Next up, Carla Robles. Carla works in the lab of Professor Harry Asada with her research advisor, Min-Cheol Kim, and they're oriented in the departments of biological engineering and mechanical engineering. Carla goes to Middle Tennessee State University. Next up, Ashley Townsell. Ashley's faculty advisor is Ron Weiss. Her research advisor is Sebastian Palacios, who is also an MSRP alum. She's oriented in the departments of biological engineering, chemical engineering, and Ashley is a Spelman College student. And finally, we have Abdul Sahid. Abdul's professor is Roger Kam. His research advisor is Giovanni Bafedu, and he is oriented in the departments of mechanical engineering and biological engineering. And Abdul goes to City College of New York. And thank you all again for this opportunity. And next up are MSRP student recognitions.
Hi, I'm Sasha Sussman, the program manager with MSRP General. I've been working remotely, and I'm so excited to be here and have the opportunity to actually meet you all in person. So MSRP General has three components: the research, the academic, and the community. In terms of the academic component, I first wanted to acknowledge Kate Nelson, who I believe is here, who is an academic administrator who's been integral in coordinating the departmental information sessions that our students have been attending all summer. In terms of community, in 2005, MSRP General instituted a pod structure to build community and support in the program. We have graduate student and postdoc program assistants who lead weekly meetings and help facilitate activities in small groups in MSRP. And so we've invited a few of the PAs to come up to recognize the students in their pod. So if you all want to join me up here now. That'd be great.
Okay,
She's up.
Hi. Okay. Hi, my name is Malik Wagi. In a week, I'll be a third-year PhD student in nuclear engineering. I'm here to introduce our exceptional students in Pod 1, whom I was very lucky to know this summer, and I hope I'll see you again very soon. So we start with Mariam Ahmed. Mariam goes to University of California, San Diego. Abdul Ghani Ajilor, who goes to Morgan State University. Chris Doring, who goes to Harvey Mudd College. Wendy Fernandez, who goes to City College of New York. Manuel Garcia, who goes to Florida International University. Alvin Harvey, who goes to New Mexico State University. Jessica Pilgrim, who goes to California Polytechnic State University. Alison Rojas, who goes to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. And finally, Brea Starr goes to Fisk University. Thank you.
So I'm here stepping in for Pod 2. Not actually the PA, but that's okay. So we have Kayla Berry from Swarthmore College. You guys can cheer. Let's give a cheer every time I say a name. I think that's a good way to proceed. We have Macy Castaneda from UC San Diego. Nice. Yasmin Graham, University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Earl Hughes, Hampton University main campus. There he is. We have Lisa J. from Vassar College and Dartmouth College, Thayer dual degree engineering. Alan Salcedo, University of Texas at El Paso. Talia Thomas, North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. We have John Carlos Vega Diaz, University of Puerto Rico. And finally, Michael West, Yale University. And that's Pod 2, thank you.
Hi, my name is Ashley Hartwell, and this summer I had the privilege to work with 9 amazing students in Pod 3. So I'm going to introduce them to you right now, and I'm going to ask that we actually give them a big round of applause at the end. So first, we have Angel Estacio Echeverria, and he is from the University of Puerto Rico, Marón Juez. Laura Becerra, and she is from the University of San Diego. Leticia Costa, who is from Wesleyan University. Byron Daniel from Yale University. Abraham Gonzalez, who's from University of Texas at Austin. Denise Medina, who's from Florida International University. Kennedy Middleton from Spelman College. Ntandi Niambose from Barnard College. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Last but not least, dear in my heart, James Spann from Rochester Institute of Technology.
I'm Candace Ross for Pod 4. We've got Indy and I. So first, we have Erica Greto from the University of Florida. We have Austin Atsongo from Vassar College. We have Haley Brace from Cornell University. Gabrielle Colon Reyes from the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez. Hannah Mariam Mekbid from Boston University. We have Esther Park from the University of California, San Diego. And David Paz, also from the University of California, San Diego. Natasha Ramos Padilla from the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez. Miles Sampson from Tuskegee University. And last but not least, Sierra Walker from North Dakota State University.
Hello, my name is Mandana, and I hope I don't scare everyone. So I'm going to close the banquet. I guess thank you for putting me last. So first, like every year, our summer students who are extremely talented design a T-shirt. So this is the design of this year's T-shirt. Josefina, can you stand up? And again, these are highly prized because there is only one edition. This is the front, and this is the back. And every year we give one, beside the students, we give one to somebody special. So this year we have two special persons. So the first one is Eliezer Callow, who was an MSRP 2005 and 2006, and just started as a professor in the biology department. Eliezer, can you come over here? And Eliezer was also a mentor this year. And the other one, so from year to year, we have sometime professors who are kind enough to take two summer students, and they give them to separate people to take care of. And this year we had actually one mentor who took care of multiple summer students. And his summer students said that he made each of them feel special. And every time he met with them, they felt like they were doing a good job and were very motivated. So I thought it was important to recognize this mentor. So Xavier, can you stand up, please? So Xavier had 5 undergrads, including 2 MSRP students. And we have a T-shirt for him too, right there, right in behind. So thank you. So, and aside from designing T-shirts and doing all this kind of stuff, and thanks you, Lindsay, for the beautiful slideshow, the students did something pretty amazing this year. They actually gave a gift to the whole MIT community, and I'm sure you cannot guess what possibly that could be. But they actually gave a tree to, they planted a tree at MIT. It's a Chinese silver bell, is that correct? So I was quite amazed that they could actually smuggle a tree from China past the US custom. But what was even more amazing is how they managed to I guess, I don't know, talk to the people at MIT and get the tree planted. So actually, here we planted the tree yesterday. And if you pass between 56 and 66, from now on, look right outside the window, and this is the tree. And it's going to have a red bandana around it. Okay? So now I'm going to recognize our students. I know everyone wants to go, so I'm going to go fast. So there are going to be names of students, and there's going to be then the name of their PI and their mentor. And if the mentor has a star next to their name, they were MSRP alums. So our first is what's her name? You can read the names yourself, okay? So Yambilex Acevedo. Our next one is Giselle Andre from, you can read, UMass Amherst. But her PI is actually a postdoc now, and he was in our MSRP 2009. Then we have Brandon Chen from Emory University. We have Gargi Mishra from Mount Holyoke University. Also, her mentor was also an MSRP alum. Then we have Samuel N. Kruma from Fisk University. We have Anna Barbo from UMass Lowell. We have Bertina Telusma from Barry University. Bertina is also an incoming graduate student in biology. We have Santiago Yuri from Florida Gold Coast University. And then we have Christina Lopez from MIT. Boy, I'm really messing up here, sorry. And we have Adrian Alejandro, and again, his mentor, Nicole, is a MSRP alum. We have Brianna Canales from UMBC. We have Subrit Johri from something Institute of Technology and Science in India. He's not here because he had to go back to start school, and he's a Corona scholar. We have Bruna Lima from UMass Boston. Charles Sanfrianzo from the University of Puerto Rico at Rio Piedras. And his mentor is Eliezer Callo, which you just met. We have Elizabeth Godrodowski from Hunter College. Luis Carbera from UC Berkeley. Asmita Penty from South Carolina University, and Asmita is also a nurse. So whenever we had emergency in the dorm, it was really handy to have someone who could do CPR and other things. So thank you, Asmita. And then Lindsay Guerin, who did our slideshow for us, thank you. Raisa Turinji Yamara from Spelman College. Swanee Lamboy from UPR UPR Humacao. Alexander Fries from Arizona State University. Nicole Rodriguez from San Francisco State University. Here we have Samuel Liebert from University of Virgin Islands. Now Samuel is a rising junior, and he's going to turn 18 on August 18. And not only this, so he's our youngest one, but he's also our tallest one. Samuel, can you please stand up? And then we have Pavan Gear from Howard University, Joey Velez from University of Central Florida, Kate Frazier from UMass Boston. We have Felix Sosa, also from University of Central Florida, Pedro Ribeiro from Oberlin College, Ira Seca from UMass Boston, Natalie Fernandez from University of Central Florida. I have to pause here too because I believe it's Natalie who emailed every day the grounds, the facilities at MIT to find a place for the tree. And I'm really amazed that she actually managed to do that. And then we have Marian Rui from UC Berkeley, Luke Arend from Bethel University. We have Nisha Charker from Hunter College. We have Jorge Yanar from Loyola University. And Jorge is also starting a new, he's a student in our incoming BCS postbac program. So he's one of two students that are starting the postbac program here. We have Raul Mojica from University of Puerto Rico in Mayagüez. Erika Shuk from, where are you? Davidson College. We have Taylor Baum from Penn State University. Gil Dekel from Hunter College. And finally, we have Paloma Sanchez, who is also an incoming graduate student for Brain and Cognitive Science. And this is it for us. Thank you.
I am actually going to close it out. But Mandana, I think I'm going to make money off you one day because you should be in stand-up comedy. You're amazing. I love you. So we've now reached the end of this wonderful event and of the 2017 Summer Research Program. And I'd like to close with a few acknowledgments. This program has thrived for more than 30 years, but it has not done so magically. You'll likely hear the metaphor if you haven't ever. We stand on the shoulders of giants. The MSRP truly does stand on the shoulders of giants, both past and present. Many of you are the giants. The faculty, the postdocs, graduate students who have shared your space, your insights, your knowledge, your expertise, your time, your minds, your hands, your hearts. And you've done so for the benefit of our young scholars who are here in training, so that they too can someday be in a place to do for someone else what you have done for them. You have made a generous investment in their future, and we are deeply grateful to you all. To the presenters throughout the summer, words have power, and through your words, you have taught, inspired, and possibly even transformed the life of some young scholar. For that, we are enormously grateful. To the graduate students who have served as program assistants, thank you for your leadership and your mentorship, and for making time in your life, which is a very busy life at MIT, to enrich someone else's and to serve both MIT and our office. To all who have spoken from the podium today, bravo. You are stunning and captivating. To Professor Asegun Henry, my beloved Ashe, welcome home. We're glad you're here with us, and we thank you for always being a gift. And I remember when you were in the summer program, and you presented your research at the end of the summer, and I was sitting in, I think it was 10250, and I said to the person next to me, he's going to be a professor. I knew it was in your DNA. I also knew that MIT was always part of your destiny. Thanks. To the team of staff who worked tirelessly to make this summer memorable and superb for all who experienced it. Today would not be were it not for all of you, for your tender, loving care of all of these young people. Of note are Mandana Sasanfar, Mauricia Donald, and Gloria Anglone. Gloria is graduate education's own Wonder Woman. I have marveled at her strength. Your tiara is well earned and well worn, and it is now time for you to rest. Yeah, give her a hand. And to our young scholars, we're glad you chose to spend the summer with us, and we look forward to seeing you again. We hope that you have become more self-aware, more confident, and more excited about the possibilities that lie ahead. Take what you have learned through your interactions and your research here, and talk about it when you get back to your home institutions. You have written a new chapter in your life journey. Hold on to it, reflect on it, build on it, and share it. Inspire some other like-minded, talented person. Remember, to whom much is given, much is expected. And so, we end this summer. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Dean Staten, because without your support over the last 2 decades at MIT. Many of the students, the graduate students, the interns, even some faculty members wouldn't have been able to take part in such an amazing institutional effort here at MIT, so we thank you. And we are done. Dean Staton said the final words. Just as a logistical announcement, please make sure if you left your posters downstairs, interns, please pick them up. We do want you to present them again. So apply to conferences, take them with you, and please make sure to clean up because we are gonna wrap up. Our program assistants, this is almost our final day, so we're gonna go through, pick up the thumbtacks and the poster numbers and get everything ready. Thank you all for your time and your energy today, and enjoy the weather outside. It looks like it's beautiful. So thank you all for being here.